peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name and still call the sea to still, the rage in me to still every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, 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 your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive that the shadows can't deny. Your name
Good morning, Creekside. I trust you're well. Hope you're having a great Sunday morning or a Tuesday night or whenever you're listening to this. So many of you have been enjoying the kind of the watch parties, if you will, at Creekside. I think there's been like 50 people every single week that attending that, so that's been really cool. And the November 8th drive-in worship and communion, the Halloween thing that the staff put on, a special thanks to all the staff, in particular Tim Brady, for organizing that. We had over 80 cars drive in that trunk or treat. And they only, talking to Tim and others, they only knew about 10 of the cars. That means 70 to 75 families from our community came through, and they were stopping and saying, "You have no idea what this means to us. We can't thank you enough. We had no idea what we're going to do with our kids today. This is just a huge blessing." So we're hoping and praying that the Christmas deal will be the same thing. So we look forward to that. It's the getting on board with what Jesus is doing, rather than just sitting around waiting for everything to change. Now Jesus will move within this new realm, and we need to flow with that, right? So, well, we are in week 2 of a 10-week series entitled 10 Learnings from a Lifetime of Living. And really, there are 10 things that God has taught me, through the years that I hold as sacred in my apprenticeship with Jesus. Last week, we looked at the first and the most important driver in my life, I think, which is gratitude. And as we did last week, and I mentioned that we're going to do this every time, each week we'll start with a short 15 to 20 minute study, and then we're going to follow that with a short interview with someone probably within our body that excels, in my opinion, in each of these areas that we cover. And then finally, I'll close the morning with kind of either a challenge or an encouragement. This week, we're going to cover our second learning from my life, and it's the idea of brokenness, or what I have titled Staying Present with Your Brokenness. Again, most of these topics I have covered in one way or another over the last 10 years many times, so hopefully most of this will not be completely new concepts to you, particularly if you attend Creekside Church. That's especially true of this topic this morning on brokenness. There aren't many things that I've talked to or about more than this idea. So to begin with, what I want to do is just ask and answer 2 simple questions. First of all, what do I mean by the idea of being broken or brokenness? And then second of all, why is it so significant, in my opinion, to our apprenticeship to Jesus? So let's start with the first question. What does it mean to be broken? I define brokenness as living in the now, or in the present moment. It's living and experiencing and feeling what is happening inside us right now. Let me read you a couple of verses from the Psalms. Psalm 51, verses 16 and 17. "For you do not desire God's sacrifice, or else I would give it. You do not delight in burnt offering. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. These, O God, you will not despise." Psalm 34, verses 17 through 19. "The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart, and saves such as have a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all." These are kind of strange way of saying this by the psalmist, and it was so confusing to me for a long time. I mean, I read these psalms and I think, does this mean God won't be satisfied unless we're just licking the pavement and we're just all beat up, right? What is the psalmist really saying? I mean, does God just want us to be depressed, and once we get really down, well, then he'll draw near to us? That's not what the psalmist is saying. He wants us to be honest, to live in the now, to be presently aware of ourselves. God's desire is for brokenness, living in the now with the reality of who we actually are, no matter what life brings. Life, death, pain, joy, hurt, rejection, fear, anger, excitement, stress or loneliness, peacefulness, deadness, exhaustion, elation. You see, the problem is that we don't like to experience the now, particularly when life is painful or we lack understanding in the moment. We don't want to be presently aware. We live in so many other ways, especially during this weird time. We are the if the problem would just go awayers. We are the I can't wait untilers. Boy, have I been saying that too many times. We live for our problems to be over so we can be okay. And then we present this person to God and the world around us, right? We say things like, if this was just behind me, everything would be okay. I remember saying that to Brian Fury almost 30 years ago. And he had this statement. It could sound very pessimistic, but there's a lot of wisdom to it. He said, the only thing you get from getting around a corner is another corner. All of life is a corner in this difficult place we live. It's so important to God that we then live honestly. And if we're all honest, we're all broken. My brother Jeff, I've quoted this so many times, but when he was going through his divorce, it said it took him about 7 years before he felt like his life returned to him. He had this amazing statement that I've just never forgotten. He said, Doug, we're all a mess. The problem is only a few of us know it. Here is a reality. You and I are broken. To deny this is to actually deny who you are. There's this famous section in Romans chapter 8. Paul wrote this letter to the church in Rome. And in this section in Romans 8, Paul says, everything is in pain. Creation groans like a woman giving birth, Paul says. Humanity groans in pain. And even the Spirit of God himself groans with utterings that you can't even put words to. In Romans 7, the chapter before that, according to Paul, we live very schizophrenic lives, right? We live constantly battling this mean, torturous flesh which lives to convince us we're not worth dying for. Broken is who we are. Many of you, like I and Linda and I, have seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix. If you haven't, especially if you're raising kids, it's a must, by the way. The redheaded guy that kind of narrates that, Tristan Harris, who's a software engineer, was on a 3-hour podcast by Joe Rogan that I listened to, excuse me, not too long ago. And he said psychologists have actually proven that woven in our DNA is negativity. And you can get 99 likes, but if there's one dislike, that's the one that we glom onto. It's literally in our physiology, if you will. We get rejected, we get hurt, we get lonely and confused and angry and frustrated and empty and even dead emotionally. We sin right after times of experiencing God. We forget God right after He makes Himself known to us. We're up and then we're down, or even worse, completely flat. And one of the 3 top books I've ever read in my life, Brennan Manning's book called Abba's Child, he has this amazing quote. He says, accept that we are impoverished and broken and realize that if we were not, we would be God. Unfortunately, I find we live lives committed to never being broken, or more often knowing that we are broken or had a broken place and now living to never repeating that or being broken again. We live our lives either fleeing our own reality, or we manufacture a false self which we can live with, or worse, that we want others around us to buy into. I've read this quote a couple of times in the last 10 years, and I want to read it again. It's a quote by Mike Yaconelli. Mike Yaconelli was the co-founder of Youth Specialties. He has since passed away. He was the pastor of what he referred to as the slowest growing church in America in Weed, California, way up north, if you've been through Weed. I think he had 30 parishioners, right? This is what he said. When I read this, it changed my life when I was 30. Finally, he says, I accepted my brokenness. I had never come to terms with that. Let me explain. I knew I was broken, but I could never accept that part of me. It was a part of me that continually embarrassed me. I continually felt the need to apologize, to run from my weakness, to deny who I was, and concentrate on what I should be. I was broken, yes, but I was continually trying to never be broken again, or at least to get to the place where I was very seldom broken. I came to realize I had totally misunderstood the Christian faith. I came to see that it was in my brokenness, in my powerlessness, and my weakness that Jesus was made strong. It was in the acceptance of my lack of faith that God could give me faith. It was in the embracing of my brokenness that I could identify with others' brokenness. What does this all mean? I don't know, and to be blunt, that is the wrong question. I can only tell you that it feels different now. There is an anticipation, an electricity about God's presence in my life that I've never experienced before. For the first time, I can hear Jesus whisper to me every day, Michael, I love you. You are my beloved. And for some strange reason, that seems to be enough for me. I remember when I was about 30 and I read this quote and I was unraveling. I had stepped out of ministry. I'd been a youth pastor for about 7 years, working also full-time, kind of in the working world, if you will. And I just imploded. I was just this guy that was so addicted to the approval of others, and God had to just like pull the needle out of my arm. And I had to come to a place where I really understood his acceptance of me. But seeing this side of myself was so difficult until I realized this is who I am. And I had to come to this place where I realized the statement, wholeness is brokenness owned and thereby healed. Wholeness is brokenness owned and thereby healed. It was only in my embracing of this side of myself that God was able to enter in and heal. Psalm 103:14, for he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. As for man, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field, for the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its place knows it no more. This is really fascinating wording. Notice the psalmist doesn't say we are dust when we are weak. He doesn't say we are dust when we're not doing well. He says we are dust. We are likened to grass, or a flower that sprouts and blooms even majestically, yet we are completely dependent. Remember our study in the Kings of Judah, I think it was about a year ago. There was a king in that. Let's see if you remember this phrase, but there was a king in that study. His name was Azariah, King Azariah. And there was this verse that was just like, wow, just that kind of described him. It said, he was marvelously helped till he was strong. He was marvelously helped till he was strong. I would word it another way. We are strong because we are marvelously helped. Weak is our frame. Brokenness, tenuous, at all times in need. This is actually who all of us are. We are dependent, even when, especially when we're not perceiving it. Any thought different than this is actually not reality. Well, if that's what brokenness is, why is it so significant to our apprenticeship to Jesus and our discipleship to Jesus to stay present within that brokenness? I'm going to give you just 3 quick reasons. First of all, you cannot experience true intimacy with God without it. That's a strong statement, I know, but let me see if I can prove that or make that case. When we refuse to be our true self with God, and instead either pretend we are something other than broken, or we project something other than the fact that we are broken, we cannot experience the presence of God. Why? Because the true we, the real us, are not even there. We're not even in the room. We have left an actor in our place before God. Brennan Manning calls this person that we project the imposter. John Eldridge, in his famous book, Wild at Heart, calls this person the poser. We deny our own frailty and then wonder why we lack intimacy with God. The deepest desire of our hearts is for union with the Trinity, and yet we will never experience His presence fully if we are not actually present with Him. And ultimately, God will not heal the areas in our life if we continually deny our broken state. Critical, judgmental, fickle, in deep need of people's like and acceptance, wanting everybody to know our thinking and our perception and our history and who we are, right? Whatever is denied cannot be healed. Peace lies in the acceptance of truth. Any facet of the shadow self that we refuse to embrace becomes an enemy, and it forces us into defensive postures. We must lean and learn to be honest about our brokenness and need and turn to God in that honest state of mind. And what does God do then? when we present the true us. That's it, warts and all. What does God do? He rushes in and He loves us and He forgives us and He calls us family and He gives us a name and He protects us and encourages us and parents us and leads us. What an incredible exchange. I just come to Him honestly and He gives me the world. Second of all, you cannot experience true intimacy with people without a sense of your own brokenness. You cannot be intimate with someone if you are not honest and yourself, meaning broken. This is just the other side of that same coin. When you present an actor to the people around you, you are not there. So how on earth can you experience then true intimacy? When we do not know who we are, life gets terribly ugly. There is nothing to me more dangerous than a person that is unaware of their own brokenness and frailty. Why is that? Because they then operate out of an unconscious pain. We must know who we actually are. And who we actually are is frail and fickle and broken and weak and dependent. We must know our own character defects, because to the degree that we can sit with our brokenness, it will be the purest reflection of how our relationships in life are going to actually unfold. We wound one another out of our brokenness when we're not aware of it. If we turn away from this, if we live in denial of who we are, warts and all, then what will happen? People will tend to shy away from us because we're dangerous to them. But if we turn into this reality and someone then calls us out, that humility invites others into growth, and then we have this beautiful exchange of real person to real person, no actors involved. Again, Brennan Manning says this in Abba's Child, at Les Arches, which is this amazing community. It became very clear to me that I had totally misunderstood the Christian faith. I came to see that it was in my brokenness, in my powerlessness, in my weakness that Jesus was made strong. It was in the acceptance of my lack of faith that God could give me faith. It was in the embracing of my brokenness that I could identify with others' brokenness. It was my role to identify with others' pain, not relieve it. Ministry was sharing, not dominating. Understanding, not theologizing. Caring, not fixing. And third, you cannot embrace the beauty of the one that God inhabits, meaning you, if you do not embrace your brokenness. 2 Corinthians 4:7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. You see, the beautiful treasure that you and I contain is actually Jesus, if we've given our life to Him. And this beautiful treasure, Jesus, is housed within a fragile, fragile deal. God's masterpiece of creation. His royal priesthood that He is sending out to redeem the world. The ones He deemed worth dying for. The masterpiece called you and I. We are a thin, fragile jar of clay that the master and creator of the universe is residing in. Well, why would He do this? Why would the master, the great treasure, reside in such a fragile deal so that no one wonders who God is and who God is not? So that no one ever has to feel the pressure of holding life together. So that no one ever has to be deluded into the non-reality that they are then responsible for doing what only He can do, and so that no one loses heart because only God is capable. For some crazy reason, we fight this. We thrash about in the pool of life to keep our head above the water, when in reality, we are fighting our own reality. We are broken. We are weak. We are frail. We are housed in jars of clay. I think it is really humorous, and I've said this before, in a frightening way, when we say we pray when we are desperate. I would ask you, when are we not desperate, people? None of us can even take a breath unless God squeezes our lungs and makes oxygen come into them. There isn't a split second of the day within your life, your entire life, when you are not desperate. What that means is, when we think we aren't, we are completely deluded. Hi, dear sister.
Hey, brother.
So we're doing this is my first Zoom recording in history. Not just in the history of the COVIDs, in the history of the history. So if this isn't good, it's probably not you, it's probably Zoom.
Yeah, you had to think through what you're going to say on that second part of
I
that
did, I
sentence.
really did have to think it through because I really like you and I respect you. So I thought, gosh darn it, now I got to be nice. I hate being nice. It's
I
not
know.
part of my nature.
I saw that go like right, no, yeah, no.
I'm terrible. It's a good thing I got the blood of Jesus. I'd be going straight to hell so quickly. And by the way, you look so hip. You're in Montana right now. You're in your son's room, so it's not that you picked up. It's not that you're trying to be me. You didn't pick up the bagpipes. You don't know how to play the electric guitar. You don't own an iguana. No. Okay. No. And you just moved your daughter Lexi there this weekend.
Yeah.
And we were going to do Zoom anyway, not only because you're out of town, but because you've had the COVIDs.
I've had the COVID.
And you're doing mostly good now?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll do a poll after this and see if people feel like your intelligence is all the way back.
Oh, please don't do that.
All right. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
They'll say yes, and it might be the worst answer.
Yeah, there you go. Well, let's jump in because it's just a short interview. So I just want to ask you some questions in this whole area of brokenness. This kind of the state of staying in a place of being accurate about yourself. And so the first question I want to ask you is, when I say we must embrace our brokenness, what does that mean to you? Like, what's the Rebecca way of defining that?
I think to be fair, I have to tell you that if you asked, 20, 30, 40-year-old me that question, I would have had two thoughts. One of them I would have said out loud. The other one I wouldn't. And I would give you a different answer today.
So tell me both things you would have said, the one you wouldn't and the one you would out loud.
So if you'd asked that question of, let's just say 30-year-old me, I would have said some churchy answer like, of course I'm broken, because if I don't admit I'm broken, then I'm not admitting that I need salvation.
Okay.
And that's,
that's really churchy.
Oh, is it ever? Yes. That's probably what I would have said out loud. What I would have been thinking is, why the heck would it be important to embrace brokenness? Like that's, or admit it. That's dumb.
That's something we run from.
Yeah, because that's, you're going to get nothing but hurt by that. So why, in fact, why talk about it? You shouldn't even admit it to yourself.
So
by the way, because it also makes you a bad Christian, right?
Right. And yet you've redefined that now, that you're not 40.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for admitting that to the whole world.
I ain't just 50 either.
I'll just leave that up to you. You're younger than I am. Let's put it that way. So why would you say I'm going to assume that you think it's an essential part of who we are. Why would you say that? Why would you say you embrace it now?
Well, if you would ask me the question now, the word freedom comes to mind to me, and here's why.
Interesting.
Because if I can't live in the reality of wherever I am right now, right here, whatever I'm feeling, broken or not, I'm literally going through life numb, which is what I was doing, and not fully alive. And I don't choose that anymore. My greatest desire is to be fully alive and fully present, and I can't do that if I'm not willing to admit and work with the broken parts.
Boy, that's an interesting word, freedom. It's like you would say, let me put it in a different way and see if you agree with this. You were shackled to this imposter. You were shackled to somebody that you were projecting out to society. You were shackled to an image, an actor, which is not free at all.
No. And I think the word control can kind of creep into that too, that we all want control, though some of us desire it or crave it more than others.
Right.
And in that control, The only way to stay in control is to numb down all the things that you think you can't control,
Right.
which makes you emotionally stunted.
Right. Wow, that's really cool. Well, tell me. So you went from this place where you said if you'd asked me in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I would have given you two answers, and one I would have hidden from you anyway. And
Right?
and really, what those two boiled down to was not telling the truth. And what you said now, kind of as a late 40s, 50, early 50-year-old, you're saying it's essential to who you are. What was the path to making that change?
Um,
I mean, clearly, it
I
sounds like you were fighting that
oh
within yourself.
oh for sure, yeah, yeah. I fought that big time for a very long time, and there were some what sounded like good reasons at the time, which would be that to reveal brokenness was sort of tantamount in my mind to not having enough faith, meaning
Uh,
I have to try harder. Or if I'm particularly broken, it means I'm not fully developed in my faith. So and you're going to hear this theme from me about performance, right? It was about it needs to look good, needs to feel good, and on top of that, I have a family of heritage instinct that says good people or good Christians don't burden other people with their problems and their brokenness. So there's
mm,
a martyrdom, I guess, kind of
mm.
in that as well. But most importantly, I think that the entry point, the pivot point, was this fear of not being enough. And if I'm broken, I can't be enough. People will reject me. And here's the most important part: God will reject me.
Ah,
So it wasn't until I started through what really kicked the process off was sort of the predecessor to the head to heart process,
yeah.
which it's really about trying to figure out what's the wrong code and the wrong instincts and the wrong beliefs that you have in your head. And that was one of them that somehow or another, um, it was up to me to be good enough in order for God to like me.
And then and then the added unspoken statement is, if I'm not good enough, then I will just not tell you where I'm not good enough,
Right.
so you don't figure it out.
Yeah. Why would I do that?
Right, right.
Right. Yeah.
It's a fascinating equation, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it was the process of identifying the wrong thinking, which, to be frank, was disorienting initially.
Yeah,
Just, I thought I was raised in a healthy family. I thought I pretty much had my act together.
yeah.
I just numbed it all down. And when those things started to get rattled, like, wait a minute, maybe that isn't actually how things work. Um, it was a little disorienting until I was able to replace that with the realization of how passionately loved I am, and using the right yardstick, I guess you might
Isn't
say.
that funny? Isn't that funny? We do the waltz to hip hop music, and we know to do the waltz really well, and
Right.
we think we're smashing it, but it's like not even the right rhythm, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden you go, you know what? The problem is I know the waltz. I may
Yeah.
not know it to the right rhythm. So now you're asking
Yeah.
me to like learn the West Coast swing, and I don't know that dance, and I'm 40 years old, I'm 50 years old. I don't want to learn a new dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the dance is
But I
who we
have.
are.
It is, and I think while I'm saying that initially it was when I realized I was attempting to do the waltz to hip hop, which
Yeah,
was, I mean, that's like the first step. Like, wait a minute, this is not right. Like, something's
right.
not right. Um, so what's wrong? Where do I even start with that?
Yeah,
And it does come down to what yardstick I'm using, meaning if I'm letting other human beings who have broken measuring devices about what worth looks like anyway, I'm always going to come up short.
yeah,
But, and this is the really tricky part, if I'm not going to, I want to say the right answer is, of course, God then is my measuring stick, but that's only true if I trust him.
Right. And it's only true if he embraces every part of you, not the put together parts of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you find now that you've kind of embraced that frailty within yourself, you've embraced the enough and the not enough,
Yes.
that you see it in other people more when they're masking that, when they're hiding from that? Are you able to smell it on other folks?
Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah, when you are in recovery over something yourself, you can certainly smell those challenges on somebody else in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
what is that? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's not even so much um, being okay with, living in the brokenness, or coexisting in with it, right, in day to
Hmm.
day life. I This is going to sound so weird. I actually want it for two reasons. One
Hmm.
is when I am completely honest with myself and completely honest with God, and then completely honest with other humans, because I'm safe to do so, because I've, I know who I am now.
And you're accepted.
Um, and I'm accepted. It's
Right.
so freeing, because I can't wait to see what God's going to do with it. Like, it's
Hmm.
almost, this is going to come out a little bit weird, but it's almost like when I discover or understand maybe a little bit better about something that I'm frail on, or that I have some development to do, whatever it is, instead of having this sense of guilt and shame and fear and wanting
Pressure.
to run away from it,
Yeah.
I have a desire to run towards it, because I trust that there is something really beautiful that God's going to do with that. And I'm
Yeah.
just really curious as to what it is.
I mean, it's the one thing, not the one thing. I'm going to say this in an exaggerated way, but it's almost the main thing God uses to actually heal other people is that which is broken within ourselves. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the broken glass that God looks at another person and says, look, this is what I do. I make stained glass windows out of little pieces, but you got to present the
Well,
pieces to me.
you gotta, in my view, you gotta have enough broken pieces for God to like shine through it. I mean,
Yeah.
to use your metaphor of the window, you need the access to the brokenness is what creates the beauty, I
Right,
guess.
right, right. Would you say it's pretty difficult to really be a conduit for God and really, really see God working through you to heal other people, and if you do not embrace your own frailty? Did you understand? Did I
Um,
lengthen my
yeah, I do.
question too much?
Well, no, I think it's, if assume, I assume that, I'm totally okay, or that somebody else is totally okay, I feel like there's this missed opportunity.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it's not true.
No, and if you're not, if I'm not living in something that's not true, I'm never going to walk right. I'm never going to think right. Like, my
Yeah.
brain is never going to be clear. I'm never going to be
Hmm.
free,
Yeah, absolutely. And then they're not going to be either, quite frankly.
and they're not going to be either. No,
Right, right.
this is about missing out,
Yeah,
not about covering up.
interesting. And missing out on what?
What it feels like to be fully alive. I know I used that phrase before, and it means something to me, because I know the difference between living numb and not living numb.
Right.
And it's literally like putting on a pair of glasses, or
Yeah, yeah.
taking a deep breath. It's just,
Hmm.
and I want that so much, for other people that I
Yeah,
come across.
yeah. It's just great to be yourself, isn't it? It is. It is. It is. Not great to be. That doesn't mean
It's, no, I
perfection.
know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah. There's this, what's the phrase that Jackie Clitmus taught me? This one is, being in your natural shape, being in your own shape.
Right, right. Exactly.
You got to know what you got to recognize that you're not trying to force fit yourself into a shape that you think you're supposed to be, before you
Right,
can actually
right,
enjoy the comfort and how relaxing it is.
right.
even in the midst of brokenness.
Right, because then they get one of two things, right? People either get the beauty of what the shape that God created, that he's presenting to the world, right, on his behalf, that reflects his image, or you're presenting the shape that has also got cracks in it, that is the very place that God has just nuzzled himself into to love and
Yeah,
accept and heal.
yeah,
You're great either way.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome. Well, let me ask you one last question. How might you encourage others to kind of move into this kind of honesty with God, and ourselves and with other people? Like just a practical, kind of a way to do that.
Um, Nobody likes to be told things. They kind of need to discover it on their own. So I like to ask questions like, consider how and whom you give permission to tell you if you're enough.
Hmm.
Kind of what yardstick are you using?
Right.
And to some, it's sort of, is that even logical? And to some, it's does that line up with biblical truth of how you're supposed to be measured? Which kind of leads to the second thing, I guess, which is if you're trying to figure, if you've decided that maybe you shouldn't be handing over the measurement of whether you're worthy or not or valuable to other people, and now you're faced with the question of, well, am I going to do that with God? Consider your honest view of whether you trust God or not. Do you trust his character? Do you know his character? Because if Derek, you and I have had this conversation many a time. He talks about, God doing things or allowing God into things. And instinctually I have this response, yes, only if he's a good God,
Yeah.
right?
You don't want to
Not
invite a
safe,
you don't want
good,
to you
right?
don't want to invite a critical person into your house.
No. Right. Why would I hand that measuring stick to a God I don't honestly trust?
Right.
Um, because I'm not entirely sure if he's good. So I guess so that second thing is um, really devote yourself to trying to understand the true character of God through
Yeah.
study, through conversation, whatever, so that you can get to a place of
Yeah.
saying, okay, this is super uncomfortable and I don't like not being in control, until you hand it over to God and there's like this huge sigh of relief. Thank God I'm not in control,
Yeah. And
right?
thank God I don't have to put up a front.
I don't, yeah,
It's really cool, Rebecca. That really the prerequisite to allowing yourself to be who you are yourself is that there's going to be at least one person, preferably the God of the universe and the creator, that says, I dig you. Don't worry
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. And being willing to consider, are you willing to live in the tension of beauty and pain simultaneously for
Hmm.
the payoff of not living life numb, in fact, and living life more alive? Are
Right.
you willing to try that?
Yeah, because once you turn the emotion on, once you allow yourself to be yourself, feel everything, you're going to get both sides. You're not getting one.
Yeah. No, right. And
Yeah.
beauty and pain are always right next to each other.
But that's the only way to be really connected to people through their beauty and through their pain
Yeah.
as well. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
Well,
for sure.
you know what? For a lady with some COVID, thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Have a
I
great
appreciate it.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, the challenge for the week. Hopefully you've been practicing gratitude. I hope you've taken the words from last week's message seriously, and I hope you're building an awareness of what God is doing in your life in this area of gratitude. We want to do the same thing with this idea of being presently aware of who we are. Staying present to your brokenness is again a practice. Much like gratitude, we need to build things into our lives to stay presently aware of where we're at, So the question is, how do we do this? Let me just give you 2 suggestions, and I hope you'll hit pause and write this down. First of all, set an alarm on your phone. And I would say set this alarm multiple times a day. And there are apps that can do this too, by the way. Maybe 3 times a day or 2 times a day. Set an alarm on your phone just to check in with your own heart. Maybe 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon and 6 p.m. or something like that. Set that alarm just to see where you're at. Are you stressed? Are you getting frustrated or angry? Are you feeling flat or are you feeling mundane? Does your day no longer feel like an adventure? And then sit with that before God. Whatever it is, that's what He wants. Remember what the psalmist said, I do not desire sacrifice, otherwise I would do it for you. What do you want? You want me. You want the real me, right? You don't even need to say a lot when you sit before God. Just lay the state you're in before God and linger and listen. Life throws so many snowballs at us all day long. We must be aware when they come. And sometimes what happens is, a wave comes and picks us up and carries us. And 3-4 hours later, we're just like fit to be tied and we didn't even know what happened to us. We need to check in with ourselves before God on a constant basis. So I would say that would be challenge number 1. Challenge number 2, when something is going south in your life, and it'll happen every week, maybe every day, right? I didn't share this, but I actually did this whole recording sermon, and then I went over and the thing wasn't recording, and I went and the disc was full. It was like the first time that's happened. I was just like, no, I gotta do this again. You're kidding me. Well, that's the first time it's happened in 7 months, so that's not bad for a non-technical guy. So when something goes south in your life, even something as stupid as that, ask yourself, who else knows? Now, that was a bad example, but who else knows? If they don't know, why don't they know? Practice brokenness by allowing or even inviting someone else into your frail thinking. May the peace of God rest upon you this week. May you allow yourself to realize not only that you're a jar of clay, but also you're the one the masterpiece wishes to reside upon and within. May God bless you this week.
You can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Take this life and breathe on this heart that is now.